Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 366 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. Always good when speaking with you. We're going to dive straight into the review part. We're going to start here at the South Bank Piazza in South Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Over here, it was on DAZN. It was early hours. I say early hours. It would have been early hours of the morning, I think, US time on Saturday morning, but it was kind of like midday. In fact, no, it was about 7 a.m., 8 a.m. UK time. And the card didn't wrap up till about midday. But anyway, I'm going to fly through this card. It was on DAZN. It was an Eddie Hearn show. What did we have? Sky Nicholson, friend of the show, now 5-0. She's the new Commonwealth featherweight female champion. She was able to beat Christina Jacobs, who's now 6-4. It was a unanimous decision there over 10 2-minute rounds. A lot of people felt that Sky might record her first stoppage as a pro, but no, it wasn't to be. She boxed really well, though. Elsewhere on the card, Dempsey McKean is now 22-0. He was able to TKO in just 3 rounds Patrick Corte, who's now 18-2 with a draw. That one was for the IBF Intercontinental Heavyweight title. I had no idea that Kevin Mitchell, former fighter, trains Dempsey McKean. I had no idea about that. And the main event, Liam Paro, 22-0. He's now 23-0. A KO in the very first round. A really good knockout against Brock Jarvis, who was 20-0. He loses his it was for the WBO Global Super Lightweight title. Liam Paro actually did say in the build-up that this is not a 50-50 fight like a lot of people think it is. They're overhyping Brock Jarvis just because he's trained by Jeff Fenwick. And I guess maybe he was right about that, because to wipe him out in just 1 round was really impressive. Moving out now to the all-female card at the O2 Arena in Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Over here, let's fly through this one. We're going to give a mention to every female on the card. Georgia O'Connor, now 3-0, a points win over 4 2-minute rounds against Joyce Vannie, who's now 2-1-1. Friend of the show, Shannon Ryan, now 3-0, a points win over 4 2-minute rounds against Bushra El Kwasi of Spain, who's now 3-3-3. I expected Ryan to get the knockout, but they did cut the rounds down from 6 to 4, which was a bit annoying, because I thought that, she would probably stop her if it was a 6-rounder, and it did look like she was getting close to it in that 4th and final round. So yes, a bit of a shame there for Shannon Ryan. Elsewhere on the card, Sarah Liegman, now 6-0, a points win over 6 2-minute rounds against the ever-tough Beck Connolly, who's now 3-16. Lauren Price, now 2-0, a TKO in round 4 against Timia Bellic. Shout out, by the way, to Lauren Price, because she was the only... her and Caroline Dubois were the only 2 ladies on the card to score a knockout. So brilliant for Lauren Price. Like I say, Timia Bellic now 6-7, Lauren Price 2-0, and her partner Karis Artingstall went the distance once again. A points win over 6 2-minute rounds there against Marina Sakharov. I had a couple bets on this, to be honest, because it was good money that you could get on Artingstall to go the distance and win on points. And I had quite a few accumulators / parlays riding on that. And there were a couple of shaky moments in there, but, she'd only been stopped 1 time in 16 losses, Sakharov, and she wasn't stopped, so she's now 5-17, still only been stopped once. She has got 2 draws as well, but Artingstall, the perfect 2-0. What else did we have on the card? Ginny Fooch, she's now 2-0. She was able to beat unanimously. It wasn't unanimously, it was a referee who scored the contest. So on points over 6 2-minute rounds against the ever tough Gemma Roog, who's now 5-5, still hasn't ever been stopped. And also Fooch goes the distance for the first time. She's 2-0 with 1 KO. We had April Hunter move to 6-1, a points win over 6 2-minute rounds against Erica Alvarez, who's now 3-7. We had Ebony Jones, who's now 3-0 with a draw. Her fight, unfortunately, wasn't shown at all. It was completely not shown, and she was afloat, so they weren't sure where her fight was going to fit in. And in the end, she ended up fighting off TV at the very end of the night after the main event, and not many people actually saw it or even knew what the result was until, pretty much the next day. So anyway, she was able to beat Jasmina Nad, who's now 11-26 with 5 draws, 58-56 there. So it was quite a close affair. 4 rounds to 2 there for Ebony Jones. The referee Sean McAvoy's scorecard. Ebony Jones, like I say, 3-0 with a draw. It was a last-minute replacement as well, I think. I think she had someone else who was fighting her originally, and then Jasmina Nad stepped in with about 48 hours notice. Elsewhere on the card, Caroline Dubois, she is now 4-0, a TKO in round 5 of a scheduled 6-rounder against Milena Koleva, who's now 10-15 with a draw. Koleva down once in round 4 as well. And then moving to the 2 main fights, going to start here with the co-main event. Michaela Mayer now 17-1, a split decision loss over 10 2-minute rounds to Alicia Baumgardner, who's now 13-1. It was for the IBF, IBO, WBC and WBO Super Featherweight World titles. I'm going to run through this fight itself, my analysis. Round 1 I gave to Michaela Mayer. Round 2 I gave to Baumgardner. Round 3 I gave to Mayer. I felt that Baumgardner was doing a lot of talking. A lot of talking rather than putting punches together, I felt, in round 3. And yeah, she was making noises when Mayer would miss, trying to taunt her, stuff like that. Mayer wasn't verbally responding. She was just, I felt, focusing on the task at hand. But at times, I think it was working here and there, because Mayer was trying, I felt, to rush her work a little bit, and she was being caught sometimes coming in, getting a little bit too eager. But I still gave her that 3rd round. I gave her the 4th round as well. I felt that Mayer was starting to up the pace and up the pressure. Baumgardner's output dropped a little bit. Mayer was starting to measure her shots better. She was hitting Baumgardner with 1-2s, repeatedly. So I had it 3-1 for Mayer after 4 rounds. Round 5, I again gave to Mayer. I felt she was starting to take over. There was a moment early in the round where the pair were exchanging straight right hands simultaneously, like boom, boom, boom. They did it about 3 times, and Mayer's punches, with that longer reach slightly, had more oomph in them, and she got the better of every single one that they threw. So 4-1 I had it to Mayer. I gave round 6 to Mayer. Again, I felt she was getting the better of the action. I felt as the fight would wear on that Mayer would probably handle the distance better than Baumgardner, so I was excited to see how the later rounds would play out. But again, 5-1 on my card to Mayer after 6 rounds. Round 7 I gave to Baumgardner. She started to come on strong. Mayer got caught with a few hard shots early in the round, and to be fair to Mayer, she did come on to finish strong in that 7th round, but I think she lost the round in with the early work of Baumgardner, and also that was when Mayer got caught and cut on her right eye. Round 8 I gave to Baumgardner, so 2 rounds in a row now. It was a close round, but I felt that she just about edged it. Again, she had success with some meaty hooks, and she finished strong that round there. So 5-3 I had it after 8 rounds. Round 9 was a really close round. If I had to give it to someone, I'd edge it to Mayer, but I think there's argument for a 10-10, to be honest with you. So I'm going to give it a 10-10. So I've got 5 rounds to 3 with 1 even. And then round 10 was a really close round to finish the fight, and I edged it to Mayer just, but again it was really close. So in the end I had it 6-3 for Mayer with 1 even round, but of course if you give that even round to Baumgardner, it becomes a 6-4 fight. And I felt that 2 of the 10 rounds were really close. So like I say, one of them I gave to Mayer. The other one, I felt it was a 10-10 round, but just to be fair, I'm going to give it to Baumgardner. It would still be 6-4. So either way, it was a really close fight. 6-4 is a really close fight, of course, over 10 2-minute rounds. But I felt that Mayer nicked it. I know that you saw that fight, Eddie. Probably just highlights of it, but tell me what you saw from what you did see.
I like the fight a lot. I think they showed actual. I'm not saying that the women don't show skill, because we've seen great fights from the women, but they really showed like it. It was, sometimes you would think like, damn, those are women and they're fighting. It was really they showed skill. There was steam on the shots. You know what I mean? It was quality shots, good punch selection for the most part. I did think, though, at times Baumgardner was taking chances trying to throw those right hands. And like the one situation you mentioned when they were exchanging right hands, I was like, that's kind of like a silent agreement to try to time who got the better right hand. And it's like, well, it's interesting and it works well. But like you said, for Michaela Mayer, like, she got a little bit of the better of it because of the range. Although I did see some stuff in the fight, especially toward the end, more toward the end, that Baumgardner was really showing class. She was doing some good stuff, with some of the counter shots, some the left hook counters, even the right hand counters. It was really, really nice. It was an excellent fight to watch, skill fight to watch for anybody, not just for females. You know what I mean? It was a good, interesting fight. I gotta agree. I don't know how it could have from the highlights. It's hard to tell from the highlights, and I watched the highlights, and I tried to watch some of the actual full fight, and just to kind of get a gist of what the rounds were like. But it looked, even with the highlights, kind of like Michaela Mayer was in control at, a little more than what Alicia Baumgardner, at least in the highlights. I mean, so like she was trying to fight, I think, a little bit too much at range with the taller fighter, and not as successful with it. She did make her miss. She did, land some good counter punches, but it just looked a little bit like Michaela Mayer might have been a little bit of an edge in the fight. But I didn't fully watch it, so I can't really say. I do, however, like Alicia Baumgardner a lot. She's got a lot she brings a lot to the table skill wise, and of course Michaela Mayer as well. So I was really, really impressed with the overall fight. Honestly, I would love if they would do that again. You know what I mean? Obviously, to see women boxing at this level, with obviously this fight and then the main event, and even the other fights on the card, all women's card is really good for the women. It's really good to see that this is a real quality product that they're putting out, and this is going to definitely do big things for women's boxing in the future.
Yeah, and again, this review part this week I think is going to be quite long-winded. There's a lot obviously to go over, so I'm going to keep it really short and sweet with the aftermath of that fight. It was a great fight. It's just a shame that Baumgardner seemingly straight away shut down any chance of a rematch. We'd obviously love to see it again. Mayer the following day was interviewed leaving the fight hotel, saying that really she thinks there probably will be a rematch, and it's because Baumgardner doesn't really have anywhere else to go. If you want a big payday, that is the biggest payday on the table. So I hope we do see it again, but there was obviously talk that Mayer was eyeing a move up in weight as well. So I hope she can still make the weight, and be strong at the weight, because when you see a fighter that talks about moving up in weight for the next fight, then they lose that fight there that they expected to win, you almost think, okay, if you've got to make the weight all over again, are you going to be at your best? So I don't want to see a depleted version of Michaela Mayer. But anyway, I'd love to see the fight again. I just think that even across social media, Mayer at this present moment hasn't yet been back on Twitter. She hasn't tweeted anything since before the fight. Baumgardner has tweeted a few things, and she's not coming across very classy. I don't really like that. There's obviously build up and tension, and dislike for one another sometimes in fights before the fight, but I like when the fight is done and dusted, that the two fighters shake hands and put the beef in the past. But it seems like she wants to carry it on. Two fighters that did have a lot of beef and have, after the fight, I guess, shook hands and shown each other respect and good sportsmanship, is the main event. Let's get on to it right here. Claressa Shields now 13-0, a unanimous decision over 10 2-minute rounds against Savannah Marshall, who is now 12-1. It was for the IBF, WBA, WBC and WBO female world middleweight titles. I'm gonna start by just saying that I picked Savannah Marshall to win. I thought that she could potentially stop her, but I was leaning more towards points, and I did think that whoever is the fighter coming forward would get the nod. And I did think that Savannah was the aggressor for a lot of the fight. I think she was the one who was on the front foot the most, but of course you have to land stuff as well, and I was quite surprised at her lack of output at times, and also her feet, like her footwork was incomparable to that of Shields. I'm going to run through the fight though. First round I gave to Shields. Shields very early on as well, if you remember, caught Marshall with a big flurry and won the round. It was a really good start by Shields. I don't think she hurt Marshall too much, but I was starting to think though that Marshall's probably enjoying the fact that Shields is confident enough to exchange with her. That's what I thought in that first round. It turned out to be quite wrong, because I didn't think that Marshall made the most of it when Shields was willing to trade. But round 2 I gave to Shields. She was really sharp. She was beating Savannah to the punch. Not everything was getting through, but she was outworking Savannah. Savannah wasn't using her famously great jab. I was wondering where it was. She was just trying to walk into range, and it just wasn't working. She was being caught by, like I say, the much more faster fighter in Shields. Shields won the third round for me again. Too sharp, too skillful. We were starting to see the difference in IQ as well, the level of the IQ. That was on display. Round 4, another round for Claressa. She was starting to dominate the fight already. It was getting to the point where Savannah would need to win every round. Savannah, I didn't think had put a dent in Shields at all in those first 4 rounds, even though, we know otherwise as boxing fans. Shields did actually look like the puncher in there, which was mad, and Marshall was starting to look really gangly and untidy, and it was starting to get to a point in the fight really where I guess desperation had to kick in at some point. I was wondering when we were going to see Marshall throw the kitchen sink. Round 5 was a better round for Savannah. I still edged it to Shields, but it was definitely a better round. It was the best round of the fight so far for Savannah, but again, on my card, she needed to finish the fight strong, but I started to think as well that she looked a little bit more tired at that point. Round 6 was a really, really close round. Savannah, for me, was winning it, but it might have just been pinched by Shields in the dying seconds of the round. Marshall, like I say, needed to empty the tank. It was a close round though, round 6. You could sympathetically give it to Marshall. Round 7 was pretty much exactly the same as the round before, round 6. Savannah was winning it, and then Shields closed the round really strong, and it was a really hard one to score. 2 in a row, identical rounds in my eyes. I still couldn't see Savannah winning this fight at this point, even if the judges were corrupt, and even if you'd given her round 6 and 7 that were really close. Round 8, really close round until the last 20 seconds, and Shields once again finished strong, and that was just reminding me that the experience was showing through here, and Savannah was really confused, it seemed, on how to use her size, use her jab efficiently. She couldn't set anything up. Round 9 I did give to Savannah. That was the only clear round I gave to Savannah. I was hoping for a big finish in round 10. Round 10, Savannah just about clinched that final round for me. She was gasping for air in the last few seconds, and I was starting to think as well, what are these scorecards going to look like? Maybe my scorecard is miles off, but I had it in the end 8-2 for Shields, but 3 of the rounds I felt were really close, those rounds being 6, 7 and 8. And like I say, I gave round 9 and 10 to Savannah. But yeah, I actually felt that Marshall was probably Clarissa Shields' biggest threat to her undefeated record across the weight classes that Shields can make, 154, 160, 168. I felt the biggest threat in all of those weight classes is Marshall. And now, after the way she dominated Savannah Marshall, I wouldn't mind betting already that Clarissa could potentially retire undefeated. With this current crop of women, I don't think she can be beaten. It was really impressive, Eddie. Again, I kind of felt that if it was going to be close, they would probably give it to Savannah. You know, there'd be a massive rematch, and I couldn't see Shields really winning on points in this country, but I was wrong. She won and she dominated, and they couldn't take it away from her.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to take a fight. You know what I mean? Even if that was what the idea was in that situation, if it was close, you know what I mean? And if it's close and you can flip a coin who's the winner, then, you know, who says that she doesn't deserve it anyway? You know, she fought her way to that point. But in this case, you know, even what I seen of the fight, which I seen, you know, bits and pieces, but I also seen the entire highlights. It was just really a lot of, I think it was the speed advantage. And the speed and the IQ. I gotta agree with the IQ thing too, Joe. But the speed, I think, is what really separated everything. And even thinking about how she is as a fighter in most of and a lot of the fights that I've seen of her, it's been generally a good speed and accuracy display, which is what really sets her apart from, you know, the competition. And like you said, you feel that Savannah was probably the biggest threat to her within these weight classes. And even with that, it's just, it's a tad bit higher, a little, maybe on another level than than her competition. So it makes it difficult to think of anybody that's going to be able to beat her. And even before this fight, we kind of semi-agreed on what, may happen as far as the judges are concerned if it went to a decision, being if it was kind of close or there was a way for, there to be a little bit of a salty decision there. But I think from just what I was just watching it, just seeing what she was able to do, how she was able to command the ring, the difference in speed, the difference in accuracy, just the overall difference in level, I think as good a fighter, as great a female fighter as, I don't want to say female fighter, as great a fighter as Savannah Marshall is, she's just not able to step up to that level, I don't think. You know what I mean? I think the speed, skill, and IQ is really what sets them apart. And it's hard to imagine that if they fought 10 times that she wouldn't win 9 of 10 or 10 of 10. You know what I mean? So she's still a great fighter. She still has a future. She still has, star power, especially in the UK. There's things that she can do in the sport. There's no need to walk away, even though I understand if she decided, man, if I can't beat the best, then what's the point in doing it? But, great fight. Clarissa Shields looked great. And I'm just looking forward to the next chapter in women's boxing. It was a hell of a show.
Yeah, it really was. And moving on to this card at the Olympia in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. I think they showed this card on probellum.com or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't get to see it. But Jazza Dickens, friend of the show, now 32-4. A unanimous decision over 12 rounds against Lorato Dlamini, who's now 18-2. It was for the vacant IBO featherweight world title. Scores in the end of 116-112 and 115-113 twice. On the undercard, Peter McGraw with a win, 5-0, a retirement win in round 5 against Alexander Espinoza. He retired on his store at the end of round 5, didn't want to come out for round 6. He was also down in round 4. He is now 21-5 with 2 draws at Espinoza. And Joe McGraw on the undercard as well, 6-0 now, a points win over 6 rounds against Alexander Taylor. So they're both the brothers box people called Alexander. But yeah, anyway, they both won. Joe McGraw did actually get cut in round 2 from a head clash, but was able to win on points, like I say. Moving out now to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. This one was live on Fox pay-per-view, and I actually bought this card on Fight TV for £13 because I thought that the card, had the decent value actually. So I went for it. I didn't stream it. I decided to actually buy it. On the undercard, Michel Rivera, now 24-0, a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Jerry Perez, who's now 14-2. He's the guy that, by the way, Rivera looks like a really small version of Muhammad Ali. Elsewhere on the card, we had Gergen Hovhannissian move to 4-0. He was able to beat Michael Polite Coffey, who's now 13-3. Polite Coffey retired on his store at the end of round 6 of a scheduled 8-rounder. Hovhannissian was winning the fight quite easily, to be honest. It's just crazy because Michael Polite Coffey was a guy who people were high on. He was a heavyweight prospect. He got in there and knocked out Damani Rock, and then he had his entire career derailed by Jonathan Rice, who, people, I guess, kind of look at him as a gatekeeper, and he lost to him the first time by knockout. Then they had a rematch. He lost on points, and he gets in with this guy here who was only 3-0. Had a decent amateur career, mind you, but 3-0 as a pro, you lose to a guy like this, you're in big trouble. And he did lose, and he lost convincingly, and he's now an opponent. He's not an A-side fighter, just like that. Eddie, you've unmuted. Was you going to say something about that?
Just one thing. I am wow shocked. I'm not. I'm less shocked about this win because this guy must be something special for his people to say, hey, I'm going to put him in with this guy Michael Coffey. But wow, to see how meteoric rise, meteoric fall. It's unbelievable how fast he just dropped off, and he looked good. Like you said, he beat Darmani Rock, and I was like, damn, this guy's pretty serious. Then he goes in with John Rice and gets stopped, and then beat and handily and comfortably. And then this fight, it's just like, man, it's unfortunate, but that tells you how important confidence is. And I really feel like his confidence was severely dented by Jonathan Rice, and that's probably what the cause of this situation is.
Whatever, it's his career. Whatever he chooses to do is up to him, I guess. Elsewhere on the card, we had Frank, who I've renamed him after what you said last week, Eddie, because you were 100% right. I'm going to call him Frank No Urgency Sanchez. He's now 21-0, a TKO in round 9 against Carlos Negron, who is generally tough and durable, but I'm kind of kicking myself because I wanted to bet on Sanchez getting the stoppage in like round 9 or 10, and I didn't do it. And he was kind of lucky to get it in round 9 in the end because he just didn't put his foot on the gas. And it reminded me of what you were saying last week about when he boxed Effie Jagba. And there's opportunities there, and it's just like he likes to just posture and walk around. And he's in no rush whatsoever, this guy. But like I say, 21-0. Carlos Negron 25-4. It was for the WBC Continental Americas and WBO NABO heavyweight title. Good knockout in the end when he finally caught him, but yeah, there was a few moments that Negron was even having because he was allowing him to get into the fight at times when he didn't need to allow him to get in, and he could have kept him under control if he wanted to do it.
Yeah, it's difficult, with this guy. He shows a lot of ability. He's got the skill, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he got all that. And it's just like he just doesn't have the urgency. It's like, the fight could be close at the end, and because of his lack of urgency, he would normally be bossing the fight. He'd normally be winning the fight. But if somebody's in there who's busy, who has somewhat of an awkward style, can really seriously give him trouble. He puts himself in danger of losing fights that are close when he steps up, especially once you step up and you start fighting the real top level competition. There's not very much that separates you all the time. So you don't want to give opportunity for people, leave things on the table. You got to go and you got to snatch it. You got to take it. Even if you're not great defensively, then you got to do it on the offensive side. You know what I mean? And I see with him, it's not that he's not great defensively. I just think he's just very lackluster in his activity. You know what I'm saying? Be that especially on offense, especially when the fight, as you've seen with this one, started to get not close. He was winning, of course, but he still let the guy get in. You know what I mean? You can't allow those things to happen, especially when you step up. So my advice to him would be to definitely pick up the pace. You don't have to punch overly the crazy amount of times and put yourself in harm's way, but definitely pick up the pace, because people are gonna they're not only going to avoid the fight, but then there's some that'll be able to even steal fights from him. So it's just like, don't put yourself in that position. Be more active. Get the fight done.
And moving on to the next fight, where should we go here? Gary Antonio Russell, friend of the show, loses his O. He's now 19-1, a technical decision after 10 rounds of a scheduled 12 against former world champion Emmanuel Rodriguez, now 21-2. You know, I couldn't ever really get my head around the fact that Rodriguez was such a big underdog, and I said it on last week's show. I said he's got a loss to Inoue. I mean, there's no shame in that. And his other loss was a complete out-and-out robbery. So to think that he can be such a big underdog against Gary Antonio Russell, who is not Gary Russell Jr., you know, like, I kind of feel like just because he's the brother of Gary Russell and they're all, good fighters, that for some reason he's a little bit overhyped with the bookies. So yeah, I thought that Emmanuel Rodriguez could upset the odds, if you like, in this situation. So you could triple your money if you bet on him to win on points, or that would also cover a technical decision, and that is what happened. He dominated the fight against Gary Antonio Russell, and I wanted Russell to win. I do like Gary Antonio Russell. But yeah, Rodriguez was just too cute for him, really, and he hurt him several times in the fight, several times. There was times where I was literally betting on the fight in play during the fight, and I was betting on the knockout. I thought he could get him out of there. It looked like he could get him out a few times in the fight. But yeah, in the end, there was a head clash, and Rodriguez, I mean, he was kind of like, there was a small little wound kind of like on his cheekbone, maybe just between his eye and his cheekbone. And he said, like it was a headbutt, no doubt about that. And then he I don't want to say made a meal out of it, because we really don't know. But he was saying he couldn't see. And, I mean, there was no blood running into his eye. He was claiming he couldn't see. It seemed like he was trying to find a way out of the fight. And I found it a little bit suspicious how the doctor, within like half a second, was saying that, apparently, it could potentially be a fractured eye socket. He seemed to diagnose that within about 10 seconds. And I don't know. I mean, it was a bit of a weird ending, but he was in full control, Emmanuel Rodriguez. And he would have won if he fought for another 2 rounds. But it was what it was. He wins the fight. And he completely dominated. So Gary Antonio Russell loses his O. Moving up the card once again, Caleb Plant, now 22-1. A KO in round 9 against Anthony Dirrell. A one-punch left hook knockout. Anthony Dirrell now 34-3 with 2 draws. Caleb Plant, on my card, won every single round, and I'm looking at the official cards here, and after 8 rounds, because there was 8 completed rounds, they had it 8-0 and 7-1 twice. So my scorecard was there or thereabouts. I wasn't actually scoring it round by round, but I was thinking, wow, Plant won that one, Plant won that one. I didn't give a single round to Dirrell. Sadly, the fight clashed with Haney Kambosos too. And I had to make the decision, which one am I going to watch? So I decided to watch Plant Dirrell instead of Haney Kambosos 2. Usually in this situation, where I've got to pick a fight, I would choose the fight that I felt would be the most exciting to watch. And I expected them both to go the distance, and both not to be that exciting. So I went with the fight that I hadn't already seen before. So I didn't watch Kambosos Haney. And I was extremely impressed with Caleb Plant. I'm glad I made the choice to watch that fight. I was really impressed with his stabbing jab, particularly the jab to the body of Darrell. And just the jab in general. He really shoots it out. He didn't throw a single lazy, telegraphed, slow jab all night long. He was pot-shotting Darrell. He was measuring the distance perfectly. He was firing right hands to the body of Darrell. It was a surgical breakdown. And just as I was typing these notes down, that was when he hit Darrell with that left hook. Boom. And yeah, the left hook was obviously thrown during an exchange, and it slept Darrell. Slept him, that might be pushing it, but it was a brutal knockout. Darrell, of course, had made fun of Plant before the fight, saying he couldn't punch, and obviously Plant had made him eat those words. Huge one-punch knockout, arguably knockout of the year. And I don't know if you caught this, Eddie, but before the fight, Anthony Darrell did an interview with someone, and he said that he hated Caleb Plant. And Caleb Plant made a point to keep bringing up the fact that Darrell hates him. And at the press conference on Fight Week, he said, you're too emotional, you hate me, you don't even know me. Like, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? How can you hate someone you don't even know? And then Darrell kept saying, why'd you keep talking about that, man? Why'd you keep bringing that up? Well, we know why, because Plant walked to the ring with a t-shirt on that said, you don't have a reason to hate me. And everyone's looking at him walk to the ring, and we're thinking, what? He's taking it a bit far now. He's made a t-shirt. And then, of course, after knocking him out, and after doing that celebration of the grave digging, which was a bit distasteful, to be honest, he then puts on a t-shirt that says, but now you do. So once again, he walks to the ring with a t-shirt that says, you don't have a reason to hate me. And then he knocks him out and puts on a t-shirt that says, but now you do. Brutal, savage from Caleb Plant. There was bad blood there, Eddie. And yeah, it looks like a little bit like Baumgardner and Mayer. They have not sorted things out with what they did in the ring.
Definitely not. I don't know. I really don't know what it is. Sometimes you look at a guy and it's like, I don't like him. You know what I mean? For some reason, you don't know him. You don't really have a reason to per se, but it's just something about him you don't like. And I understand that feeling, but I would never say I hated someone without really understanding who they are as a person. I can look at somebody like a Wilder, for example. I have nothing against Wilder. I don't hate him. I don't dislike anything about him. Even his boxing style, I've given him credit for getting to the point he has with honestly not very many skills. But I looked at him and I was just like, how is this guy able to do this? You know what I mean? And you start getting in your feelings a bit and you start saying, man, I'm like 10 million times the skill level of this guy, but he has that right hand and that's all he needs. And he's 6'7", and you start to hate a little bit. So maybe I'm thinking if, Darrell was looking at him and was saying, man, how the hell this dude he fought Canelo, he did all right, but, maybe, I'm better than him. I'm this, I'm that. And you start looking at a guy like that who maybe, he's kind of clean, he got a decent image. And then you just say, I don't really like this guy. You know what I mean? I think he's corny. He's not being real. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So it's like, maybe that was what Darrell had with him, but Caleb Plant went ahead and turned that knife all the way over. He said, look, I'm going to turn this into something serious. He went and got a t-shirt made. That was classic. I ain't going to lie. I don't know if it was distasteful or not. I'm not going to say that. The grave digging, maybe, you know what I mean? Because the guy's on the ground. He could have been seriously hurt. It was a hell of a knockout. But the shirt, though, I like the shirt. I kind of like the shirt. But I think now that the fight's over, I would hope, and I've seen a video that Anthony Darrell did, giving credit and saying he doesn't hate him and all of that, and saying congratulations, champ, on the win, great fight. And I like that. You know what I mean? The fight's over. Bury the hatchet. We saw Caleb Plant do exactly what not necessarily the knockout. I thought he was going to win by decision, but I figured he would outbox Darrell at this point in his career. Darrell is just not what he once was either, I don't believe, even though he's done some good things recently. But just not at the caliber that Caleb Plant is right now. So it was an interesting fight. And you see a lot of the roughhouse tactics with with Anthony Durrell, early on, doing some things to kind of get in his head. But I think Caleb Plant kept a cool head. He boxed really well, and then of course put the icing on the cake with the knockout.
Yeah, it was a really good performance from Plant, and I swear, man, like he performed so impressive to me that I think, aside from obviously Canelo at 168, he could be the best fighter. I really mean that. I mean, yeah, I think he could be the best fighter at 168. Oh, you've unmuted yourself quickly there.
No,
yeah.
I was just saying possibly.
Actually, him and David Benavidez might be better.
Oh, right. Yeah, you gotta be careful when you say. Yeah. We'd have to see them in the ring together, to be honest. I mean, Caleb Plant, I think she's a really sharp one-punch guy. Pot shotter. Really sharp. Obviously, got more power than we thought he had. But yeah, it's hard to say with Benavidez. But that's a hell of a division, with those two guys. And if there's some guys that decide to move up and get on in there, it's going to be even more interesting.
Yeah, I think I'd favour him over the likes of Daniel Jacobs at this point. I'd favour him against Billy Joe Saunders, even though, we're probably not going to see him in a ring again, potentially, but definitely not at super middle. I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, I think he was that impressive. I thought it was really, 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 really impressive. And moving up to the main event, you spoke about him a moment ago, Eddie, when you were giving that example in comparison. Deontay Wilder now 43-2 with a draw, a knockout in the very first round against Robert Helenius, now 31-4. I said it on last week's show that the money that you could get for Wilder to stop him within the first 6 rounds was quite a good return on your money. And 1-4 as well. Rounds 1-4 was quite nice, and rounds 1-2 was even better, of course. So I always felt he'd get him within the first 6 rounds. I thought the first 4 rounds he could potentially get him as well, and I thought there's a small chance potentially as well in the first 2 rounds. So I bet on all of that, and they all, of course, came in when he stopped him in the first round. So I had a successful week of betting on the fights, but yeah, I wasn't surprised at all. I said it, like I felt like he really could end it in a couple of rounds, and yeah, I mean, it's typical Wilder. I mean, from what I did see in the first in that first round, or what we saw of that first round, it was a bit weird from Wilder. To me, he looked a little bit like worried, a little bit like, on the back foot, wide-eyed, being very cautious. Helenius was being the aggressor, and then, boom, he caught him with that right hand. It didn't travel very far, but he caught him coming in. He walked right into it. 1 punch, KO, and good night for Helenius. Yeah, I don't know what to read into it, Eddie, because I still don't know what he's got left after that third fight with Fury, and it wasn't long enough to see it, but it is impressive nonetheless to get Helenius out in just one.
Yeah. In 1 round. I mean, we would have thought, with Helenius' recent success, though that doesn't have anything to do with the kind of guy he was going in with this fight. So, it's when I look at Wilder sometimes, and I'm, like I said, I'm not hating it. I just look at his style and say, how does this guy do it? My right hand must be, it must be Thor's hammer. You know what I mean? That thing must be unbelievable. But then some of the things that you see, like I actually seen, Helenius going to the body, but leaning in, throwing wild shots. Not wild, but wider shots to the body, a little fat. And like I said, leaning in head first. And I just, for the life of me, could not understand why anyone fighting Deontay Wilder would ever sit on the line in the middle throwing body shots, especially as he's got his back somewhat to the ropes and you're coming in where there's nowhere for him to go, which means in a lot of cases, guys will throw a right hand or something coming off the ropes, especially if you come up short with your shots. And I'm just like, certain things. I mean, I'm not gonna, accuse Helenius of being a great skill fighter or whatever, but I think I thought he had a little more IQ than what he was doing. I think the game plan was to go to the body, take some of the steam out. He's been off for a little while. It's a pretty decent layoff for him. So let's go in and remind him of what Fury did. I get it, body punches, rough him up, be aggressive. And I like that. I like what he was doing, but I think it was, once again, I think it was also smart thinking of Wilder and looking at Wilder actually came in light again, not thinking so much about trying to be big and trying to put weight on to combat someone else's size, which was smart. Stick to your strengths. That weight does not help your right hand any more than if you had it or if you didn't. You know what I mean? So I think that was smart. But just watching Helenius do what he was doing, and I understand the aggression. I understand attacking his right hand and attacking him in general and putting him on the back foot. But you can't do it with your head on the line. You got to move that head. And you can't take chances, especially going to the body, putting your head directly in the middle, right where that right hand could land. It's just I think the plan was good, but just not well executed. I think that's really, at the end of the day, what put Helenius in the position that he is now. Well, putting him on the floor, let's say. And hopefully he's all right. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure he is. Ego's probably a little hurt, and his opportunity's gone. But hey, the money's gonna help. So, congratulations to Wilder. Same thing happens. I'm not sure what's gonna happen in the future. I'm not sure who's gonna get in the ring, but he'll always be dangerous with that right hand for sure.
Yeah, we'd love to see the Anthony Joshua fight next for Wilder. That'd be brilliant, but that's a conversation for another day. As for Helenius, sometimes he's got about as much head movement as a statue. Moving out to the final card to mention, it took place at the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. There you go. The accent has come through for anyone that wanted to hear it. Probably no one. Let's talk about the undercard. Lorenzo Truck Simpson, now 12-0, a unanimous decision there over 6 rounds against Marcus Haywood, who's now 6-5 with a draw. We had friend of the show, Susie Ramadan. She was on a few weeks ago. She's now 29-4. She came up short, unfortunately, in her IBF World Super Bantamweight title fight against the champion Shanika Johnson, who's now 15-1. A unanimous decision there over 10 2-minute rounds against Susie Ramadan. Like I say, the referee in that fight was terrible, by the way. Terrible. He was taking points off of Ramadan almost for no reason. I've got to say, there was a cut on Shanika Johnson that was probably the worst cut I've ever seen a woman sustain in boxing, and credit to Johnson for continuing with that horrific cut right above her eye. It looked like it was like a slice, man. It was massive. They were like putting the cotton bud over it, and it was disappearing inside the cut almost. It was horrible, man. It looked like you could, like, I don't know, put a CD inside it. It was terrible. Yeah, terrible. And, she showed a lot of heart to come through and carry on fighting. And then, yeah, it took a few rounds to get it under control. By the end of it, it seemed to stop bleeding. But the doctor was having a look for a couple of rounds in a row. And I've got no idea why he even bothered to look, because it was terrible. And he still allowed it to continue. But yeah, shout out to Susie Ramadan as well. She had all those points taken off, and she's only had one fight since 2020, and she's 43 years of age, and she was still, pouring it all out in rounds 9 and 10. So yeah, credit to her. What a brilliant athlete she is. And moving up the card once again, friend of the show, Andrew Maloney with a win, now 25-2, a unanimous decision there over 10 rounds against Norberto Jimenez, who's now 31-10 with 6 draws. That one was for the vacant WBO International Super Flyweight title. Also on the card, the twin brother Jason Maloney also has 25 wins and 2 losses. He also won unanimously, but he went 12 rounds instead of 10 against Nawafon Kaikana, the guy with the incredibly padded record, now 56-2 with a draw. I expected Jason Maloney to get him out of there, but no, it wasn't to be. And the main event, as I said, I didn't actually watch it. I saw little bits between rounds sometimes. Devin Haney, 29-0, still the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. He went back over to Australia. Credit to him for going back over there. And, I guess, upping his game slightly again, because he won so easily first time round. I kind of felt sorry for him. I know he's getting paid loads of money to do this, but to go back to the United States, then fly back to Australia after a long training camp again for the same guy that you've beaten. I don't think he even really needed to train to win this fight, but he is very professional, Devin Haney. That's one thing no one can knock him for. And George Kambosos Jr. now 20-2. Again, I really like George Kambosos. Said it so many times. Really cool guy. Got a lot of time for him, a lot of respect for him, but he's just not on the same level as Haney. Styles make fights, and it's just not a good style matchup for him. Haney is extremely textbook, and, he's got fantastic athleticism. He's big for the weight. There's a lot of things that work in Haney's favour. He's got a lot of tricks in the book, and he's just too textbook and too much IQ, really, for George Kambosos. Kambosos, put him in there with a big banger, I give him a chance. Put him in there with a guy who, is let's say long and tall for the weight, has a long reach, doesn't hit so hard. You could put him in there with him. But a guy that's as good as Haney is, as good as he is in terms of being technically sound, has everything down to a T, can do so many different things in the ring. It's just not a fight that he's going to look good in. It doesn't matter. He is never going to look good against Haney. And that's why I decided to not watch the fight, and I decided to watch Caleb Plant instead. And from what I did see, it was pretty much the same as the first one. No knockdowns. Yeah, Haney's given him 24 rounds of a beatdown. I'm not sure if he lost even maybe 2 rounds over that 24-round fight, you may as well say they had. So all the best to Haney as well. Seems to be getting better and better. He looked horrendous, by the way, on the scales, it has to be said. He looked really dry and drawn as well, like his eyes sunk back in his head. So I'm not sure if we're going to see him at lightweight for too much longer. But if he moves to 140, what an exciting division. And of course, if he relinquishes all the titles at 135, then it makes it exciting for all those guys just in that contender position. So the future will be exciting, I think. But anyway, that wraps up the review part of the show. Like I said, there was loads to go over. That brings this part to a close. The final thing for me to do in this part of the show is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning and undefeated British Super-Welterweight champion. It is, of course, Mr. Troy Williamson. Troy, welcome back on the show, my man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joey, mate.
Hey, no problem. Always a pleasure, Troy. So we last spoke back in October of last year, a year ago this week, actually. At the time, you were fresh off that win over Ted Cheeseman in what was an excellent fight. Since then, you've boxed twice, the first of the two, obviously making your first defence against Mason Cartwright, which for me was a tougher fight than I expected it to be. Obviously, you were down in round 2. Tell me about that fight briefly. Another really good fight, though, Troy.
Yeah, it was a good fight for everybody watching and for everybody who had to come and support. I knew obviously what Mason was all about. A lot of people didn't, because, in my opinion, he just obviously hasn't had the opportunity to showcase what he's all about. Like myself, before the Ted Cheeseman fight, nobody knew what I was all about. So everybody was writing me off and thought Cheeseman was just going to walk through me. And that's exactly what people thought about Mason Cartwright, because nobody's heard of him. People just thought I was going to go in there and walk through him. But obviously, as you've seen, I got put down in the second round. It didn't go that way. It was a tough fight. But like you said, I got the job done. It was a close fight, but I won unanimous, and I think I was the well-deserved winner.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you boxed back in September as well, just a tick-over fight really against David Benitez. You became the quickest man to stop him when you did so in round 6. Just a keep busy fight, Troy, there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Obviously the deal was, if Josh accepted the fight against myself, then obviously I'd be boxing beforehand, and they give us 2 dates. One was a little bit closer to obviously the fight date, so I just thought, I'll take this fight in. I think I had 10 days notice. I was in the gym training. I was just obviously just a little bit heavy, so I took the fight on short notice and just weighed in that. A weight that obviously I'd never boxed at before, which was 12 stone. I think I was 12 stone something. So, but yeah, I'm a true professional. I'm always in the gym. So when the call came, I could obviously take that fight.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you were added kind of late. Your next fight obviously has been announced. It's a really, really good fight. Obviously, I'm from London. I'm excited about it. Fans all over Britain are buzzing about it, but particularly in the Northeast. I mean, this is huge over there. You'll be boxing Josh Kelly December 2nd at the Newcastle Arena. How happy are you to have gotten it over the line finally? Because I know it's a fight that you've wanted for quite a while now, Troy.
Yeah, I'm over the moon. This fight is massive for British boxing alone, but with us both obviously being from up north, it's huge. I'm really happy to get it over the line. We've had previous opponents that obviously we had JJ Metcalf. He withdrew from the first bid, so I think somebody else withdrew. I never thought obviously I'd get to defend it again. I thought everyone was going to keep running, but obviously Josh stepped to the plate, and we're here now. It's all finalised, and we're going to have a great fight.
And there was talk about the fight for quite a while before we saw it signed. Was there a delay with getting the fight signed? And if so, do you know or can you state the cause of the delay?
I heard that obviously the first bid's got postponed because apparently he got a nick in his last fight. And I think that's the reason why it had to be postponed, because he had a cut in his last fight, from what I believe.
Okay. And how do you actually see the fight playing out? Because again, the style clash is very intriguing.
Yeah, it's obviously, as people might call it, it's boxer versus puncher. I don't just punch; I can box as well, and you're going to see this on fight night. Josh Kelly can be outboxed. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to take it to him and box and fight when I need to.
And just from your perspective, Troy, not the perspective of the fans, do you see this as a bigger fight than the Ted Cheeseman fight? Is it a tougher fight?
I think it's definitely bigger because, like you say, obviously it's a huge Northeast derby. Tougher, would I say tougher? Obviously, I'm prepared for the best Josh Kelly, and I'm prepared for 12 grueling rounds, which I always do. Do I think Josh Kelly will be in the 10th, 11th, 12th round? No, I don't. But who knows? We've got to wait and see.
And Josh Kelly, we saw him lose his O to David Avanesian. He had a couple of good rounds in that fight, but when the tables turned on him, I felt, at least, that Adam Booth was very quick to throw the towel in. Can you take anything away from that fight, which I'm sure that you watched?
Yeah, I watched the fight. Wouldn't take nothing away from it, because whether Kelly was struggling to the weight or what, I'm not sure. And obviously, me and Avanesian are completely different fighters. But if Avanesian can pull him around the ring and walk him down like how he did, then obviously what am I going to do to him? Because Avanesian's tiny. I'd stand Avanesian on his head. So obviously, what would I do to Josh Kelly if he turns up against me how he did against Avanesian?
And obviously this will be your second defence of the British title. A win here would mean you're only one defence away from winning it outright. Would that be your ideal next move?
Yeah, I'd love to win the British title outright. That's always been me. It's always been one of my goals. I'm 31 now. I can't hold the weight forever, so it'd be nice to get me out quickly in the new year. And yeah, I'd love to win that British title outright, which I'm very confident I will do.
Yeah, it's a brilliant belt, of course. And yeah, you mentioned just there 2 questions ago or so. You said you don't think Josh Kelly will be there in rounds 9 and 10. Does that indicate you're predicting a stoppage win?
If the stoppage win comes, it comes. But like that's obviously it's shown in the past. I can do 12 rounds. I've done a few 10s and I've done a couple of 12s now. So I'm a 12-round fighter. I'm there for the long one. So if it goes to 12, then I'll be there with him. But if it goes early, then yeah, I'll get him out early.
And I want to ask as well. Go on, Troy.
I won't go in there looking for the stoppage.
Yeah,
I never do.
For sure. And I want to ask you as well, Troy, did you catch any of the boxing at the weekend? Maybe Savannah Marshall being from your neck of the woods, and if so, what did you make of it? Great fights.
Yeah, I watched it. It was a great fight. I predicted the Savannah Marshall win, if I'm honest, before the fight.
So did I.
I wouldn't say disappointed. I was disappointed that she didn't win, but I wasn't disappointed in her performance or anything. She showed great heart and she showed that she's a true champion. I think just Clarissa Shields was a better fight on the line.
Yeah, I have to agree. And just finally, Troy, if you've got any closing words before we let you go, if there's anything I've missed, if there's anything you want to say at all, then take it away, my man. Say whatever you like.
Yeah, I would like to say, obviously, the tickets are on public sale on Friday. You can get the tickets from myself. And so you can, if you follow my social medias, I'm on Twitter, Troy Williamson _. I'm on Instagram, Troy Williamson _1. Obviously, you can catch me on Facebook. So just type my name in the search bar. Get at me for tickets. It's always better to buy them direct from the fighters.
There you go. Buy directly from Troy Williamson on Twitter, as you said, at Troy Williamson _ on Instagram at Troy Williamson _ as well. Yeah, so brilliant. If you need tickets, hit up Troy directly. How cool is that? Listen, Troy, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my man. Best of luck for December 2nd. Thanks for your time, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you very much, mate. Speak to you soon, Joey, pal.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. Zelfa Barrett steps in place of Joe Cordina. He will be taking on Shavkat Rakimov for that now vacant IBF Super Featherweight World title. Again, the date for that one, November 5th. It goes down in Abu Dhabi. Great stuff, really, for Zelfa Barrett to get a crack. You know, it's interesting. Whenever we see him fight, I enjoy his fights, you know, because I feel like he's improving all the time. But, you know, Rakimov is a good fighter, and I'd imagine he's surely going to be the favourite. So I'm excited to see that fight there. Should be a good one. Elsewhere, it's now official. John Ryder will be taking on Zach Parker. That one to go down on the 26th of November at the O2 Arena. It's a big fight that domestically. Obviously, there's a lot on the line. Zach Parker closing in on a world title shot now, and it's a massive domestic clash here, but a really big arena as well, the O2. There's talk about the undercard. I'm not sure if anything's 100% locked in, but I think we're going to see Hamza Shiraz getting back out. We're going to see Pierce O'Leary, Dennis McCann, Sam Noakes, so it should be a decent night of boxing really there, and the tickets for that I think go on sale later this month, about a week from today, I believe. Yeah, so that's it there. So it's going to be a great fight there. Parker and Ryder, both friends of the show. And then the final piece of news is that Emiliano Vargas, one of the fighting sons of Fernando Vargas, has signed a promotional contract with Top Rank. He's going to be fighting in his first card for Top Rank on November the 12th on the undercard of Janibek Alim Kanuli against Denzel Bentley. So yeah, fantastic for him to be signed with a major promoter. He's 1-0 as a pro with 1 KO, 18 years of age. That's it though for the news. Moving on now to the preview part. We're going to start here with a card that goes down on Saturday. That's going to be Saturday, the 22nd of October, this Saturday at the Sportska Dvorana in Zabok, Croatia. Over here, friend of the show, Ivana Habazin, currently 20-4. She fights here for the vacant WBC silver welterweight title against Diana Prazak, who's 14-4 over 10 2-minute rounds. All the best there to Ivana. Moving out now to the Fabric Sports Hall in Frankfurt, Hessen, Germany. Over here, one fight to mention, just the main event. Leon Bun, who is 18-0, fights for the vacant IBO World Light Heavyweight title against Padraig McCrory, who's 14-0. Should be decent there. That's gone under the radar. Moving out now to Mexico at the Plaza de Toros in Mexico City. It's going to be live on DAZN. We've got Mauricio Lara, 24-2 with a draw, getting in with Jose San Martin, who's 33-5 with a draw. We've also got on the undercard for the WBO NABO lightweight title, Angel Fierro, 19-1 with 2 draws, getting in with Jeremy Cuevas, who's 14-1. Elsewhere on the undercard, we also have Reshat Mati, 12-0, supposed to be fighting for the vacant WBC Youth Silver Super Lightweight title. No opponent for him just yet. That's about it, really. And moving now to the York Hall, Bethnal Green, London. Over here, Mark Chamberlain, 11-0, I believe, tops the bill. He gets in with Merrill Vegas, who's 22-6 with a draw. That one for the IBF European Lightweight title. It's going to be live on BT Sport, by the way. We also have David David Adelaide, the heavyweight prospects, 9-0, getting in with Michael Wallish. That could be a little bit spicy, may I say. And it could also equally be not spicy at all, because Michael Wallish, as we know, I've said it so many times on the show, I think he got to about 20-0, banging out all these, all these kind of subpar opponents, and then he lost by knockout to Christian Hammer, then lost by knockout to Efia Jagbar, then lost by knockout to Tony Yoka, then lost by knockout to Joe Joyce, then lost by knockout to Murat Gasayev. So like I say, 23-5, but all of those guys that he's lost to, Joyce, Yoka, Hammer, Jagbar, Gassiev, they're all quite good fighters, really. I mean, let's be honest, they're all good fighters, and they're all much more experienced than David Adelaide, who officially is 9-0, but some people would say he should be 8-1, because a lot of people felt he didn't deserve the decision against Kamil Sokolowski, but that's another story for another day. Should be good, though. Elsewhere on the card, Charles Frankham gets out, no opponent just yet. Sean Noakes as well gets out, no opponent just yet. Sonny Ali as well, Joshua Frankham. A lot of prospects really filling the undercard. And then the final card to mention, it takes place on Saturday. Once again, all these fights that I've mentioned on the preview part are all taking place on Saturday. This one goes down at the California Education and Performing Arts Center in Ontario, California, USA. Over here, I don't think it's being televised, but we have friend of the show, Ernesto Mercado, 7-0. It's for the NABA Super Lightweight title, which is currently vacant. We had Ernesto on, I want to say it could have been early this year or perhaps last year, towards the late part. It was quite a while ago, but his amateur record supposedly was 278-11. So yeah, he's being fast-tracked as a pro. 7-0, gets in with Jason Velez, who's 30-9 with a draw. Definitely past his best now. Jason Velez was always kind of like a sturdy, I guess domestic kind of gatekeeper type guy, but nonetheless it's a jump up for a guy who's only had 7 fights, and the opposition that Mercado's faced thus far haven't been really near this level, and he's fighting a guy here who's a 40-fight veteran, who's always been tough, to be honest, Jason Velez. So I'm really excited to see how it's going to play out. It should be noted that Velez as well has only been stopped twice in his 9 losses, to Oscar Valdez in the 10th and final round of their fight, and also to Gabriel Flores in round 6 of their fight. So he's generally tough. Took, of course, Ryan Garcia the distance, which not many people do. Took Jojo Diaz the distance as well. Took Ronnie Rios the distance as well. So always quite a sturdy character. And Ernesto Mercado, 7-0 with 7 KOs. So we're going to see what happens here. It's going to be entertaining, I think. But anyway, that wraps up the preview part of the show. In part 1 we did the review part. There was loads to go over. I'm sorry if you felt it dragged. Then we welcomed our special guest, Troy Williamson, and in part 2 we did the news part and the preview part. Eddie didn't even have to say anything in part 2, but the final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 366 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A special thank you to our special guest, the undefeated British Super-Welterweight champion, Troy Williamson. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show, and that's that Tyson Fury's next fight has been announced December 3rd at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London against Derek Chisora, the trilogy fight. On the undercard, we'll also see Daniel Dubois making his first defence of his WBA title against Kevin Lerena, and more fights will be added to the undercard in the coming weeks. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.